spoken with the president already today about Texas, and I'm certainly hopeful. I think, as probably you know, Martha, I've made no secret of the fact that I hope the president will endorse John Cornyn. He is an incredibly effective senator for the state of Texas, and so we'll see. Ultimately, the president, he makes his own decisions, but I've certainly weighed in many times, I should say, in support of Senator Cornyn, and I believe he is not only going to win the primary, but the general election in November.
What you're looking at right here is the RINO leader, Senator John Thune, and what he's doing, he's basically running to President Trump, begging for support, begging for an endorsement, because one of his RINO buddies, we're talking about John Cornyn, is up for re-election in Texas. And there's a MAGA-aligned candidate, Ken Paxton, who's running to replace him in the Senate. And after months of failing to pass the Save America Act and trying to undermine President Trump, we now have RINO leader Senator John Thune running to the president, begging for support, begging for an endorsement, which is why more and more Republicans are now calling for Senator John Thune, for him to step aside and for him to be replaced, unless he can pass the Save America Act. And here we have a video of President Trump at the White House yesterday demanding that the Save America Act be passed. Play clip.
Homeland security funding. Would you support them expanding that to include other tax and defense?
Well, I'd love to see one thing. You know what that is? Save America. I'd love to say the Save America Act, which is voter ID, which is proof of citizenship, which is, by the way, no mail-in voting, which is a fraud. Anytime you have mail-in voting, you're going to have a fraudulent election. But I'd leave it for military, mail-in voting for military, for people that are sick, for people that are traveling, like business or whatever, different things.
That was President Trump making it clear that the Save America Act still needs to be passed, because ever since the Senate came back from recess, Senator John Thune, he basically said, you know what, just forget about the Save America Act. It is not important. It is not a priority right now, that there are more important stuff to be taken care of, which is insane considering the fact that a few weeks ago, President Trump said he's not going to be signing anything coming out of Congress unless they pass the Save America Act. And Senator John Thune, as I said, he's trying to undermine the president, which is why he's trying to focus on everything else except for doing what's right to pass the Save America Act, including nuking the filibuster. And here we have Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, who's been pushing for the Save America Act, calling out some of his RINO colleagues who openly supports the Save America Act, but in secret, they're trying to undermine the bill. Play clip.
Supposedly, one of my colleagues called the effort to pass the Save America Act in the Senate a charade. Well, my guess is that whoever said that but didn't have the guts to put their name to it is somebody who's a co-sponsor of the Save America Act, who openly, actively tells his constituents that he's a co-sponsor of the Save America Act, and maybe even tells donors that in order to raise funds. Regardless, this isn't going away. I'm not going away. This thing's not a charade. And I'm doubling down on this. I'm going to work twice as hard just because you said that, whoever you are.
That was Senator Mike Lee calling out some of his RINO colleagues for their fake support of the Save America Act, because what they do, they openly act like they support the Save America Act, but in private they're saying something completely different, which is why I think President Trump should not support or endorse anyone that is close to Senator John Thune, because Senator John Thune and the people that he's endorsing, that he wants to get elected to the Senate, they're cut from the same cloth, and they should not be in Congress because they're not working for the people. They're not working for Republicans. They're more interested in working with Democrats, because remember, Senator John Thune, he made that secret shady deal with Chuck Schumer before they went on recess. And here we have a news clip of a news anchor calling out these Republicans, these RINOs, for their fake support for the Save America Act and not working for the American people. Play clip.
RINO Tom Tillis telling Politico, the number of working days are very limited. You just do the math. It's a very compressed schedule. How about you go to work? The report coming, Tillis saying among a group of Republican senators who believe Trump should make any further changes to his inner circle sooner rather than later to give the Senate maximum flexibility in confirming I'm sorry, what? He tells you to pass things that 83% of America wants, like the Save America Act, and you refuse to. But now you want him to hurry up? Pound sand, bro.
It is clear that these rhinos, they don't care about the president. They don't care about his agenda. They only care about themselves and their power, which is why whenever there's someone that's running for election or re-election, they run to the president and they beg for his endorsement. Because we all know President Trump, he's still popular with Republicans and with MAGA as well. And something that these rhinos, they're doing, they're coming out and they're saying, well, they're trying to spin the narrative. They're saying the reason why the Save America Act hasn't been passed is because of the Democrats. When we know from the start, the Democrats, they weren't going to support this bill. So the only way to pass this bill is to nuke the filibuster. And here we have a Republican senator, a rhino, trying to blame Democrats instead of looking within and saying, well, why hasn't this bill been passed? And look at the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. Let us watch this clip.
Just off the Senate floor, we just voted on an amendment to help get the Save America Act across the finish line. Senator Kennedy fought hard to get this amendment to the floor. Unfortunately, the Dems have blocked the Save America Act again. It makes absolutely no sense. Only Americans should be voting in American elections. I'll keep pushing hard to make sure we adopt this common sense legislation.
That was Senator Ashley Moody from out of Florida, and I agree with her. Only citizens should be voting in our elections, but at the same time, they're not pushing hard enough. We're talking about the Republicans in the Senate to pass the Save America Act, which will require only citizens to be voting in our elections. Because if they were pushing hard enough, then she would be calling on Senator John Thune for him to nuke the filibuster to get the Save America Act passed. Because we know the Democrats, they're not going to work with Republicans. We just know that's not going to happen. The Republicans, they're playing nice, while the Democrats, they're essentially playing dirty, because look what they did in Virginia, because they gerrymandered the hell out of that state. But here we have a common sense Republican calling out Senator John Thune to pass the Save America Act. Play clip.
I'm here on the Senate steps just outside the Capitol. It's been 70 days since the House passed the Save America Act, common sense legislation requiring voter ID and proof of citizenship to vote. These are basic safeguards that countries around the world use. The American people overwhelmingly support this. Democrats and Republicans want to know that their elections are secure. This is stalled in the Senate, and while it sits there, what are the Democrats doing? They're drawing rigged congressional maps to further undermine our elections. Senator Thune, you must pass this bill, or all the great work that President Trump and the Republicans have done will be lost.
That is exactly how you do it. Call out Rhino Thune by his name. Let him know that he's not working for the American people, because the American people voted Republicans into the Senate, the House, and the White House. And Senator Thune, he's literally trying to hinder the president's agenda, because there are a lot of things that the people elected President Trump to do. And the only person, in my opinion, that's stopping the president right now is Senator John Thune. And here we have another Republican calling out John Thune to pass the Save America Act. Play clip.
We're going to lose it all if we don't act. By the way, the Senate is sitting around going, oh, we got to save the filibuster. You and I as conservatives, we want to stop bad legislation. I appreciate the sentiment, but you guys are going to lose the Republic, because Democrats are going to do what they did in Virginia last night. They're going to come in, they're going to make DC a state, they're going to pack the court while you guys sit around fiddling while America burns.
I personally think the president should not endorse anyone that's associated with Senator John Thune, because at this point, he's failing the president and he's failing the country. And this is the reason why Congress, we're talking about congressional Republicans, their approval ratings are so low. It's because they're not producing for the American people. And here I have this reporting to show you in regards to their approval ratings. Play clip.
Only 10% of Americans approve of the Republican-controlled Congress. Let that sink in. That's according to a new Gallup poll. 86% of the country does not approve of the job Congress is doing. Well, Congressman John Rose, the Republican from Tennessee, among those frustrated, noting that President Trump started working day one to implement his America First agenda. The congressman writing on X, DHS still hasn't been funded. The Save America Act is stalled in the Republican-controlled Senate. Americans deserve better than this inaction. Well, join me.
I agree with the congressman. President Trump has been working since day one. Since he got into the Oval Office, he was signing executive order after executive order. But there's only so much you can do with executive orders. What we need is for Congress to start acting, and they're failing to pass something so simple, something that a majority of the American people supports. And the question is, why would the president endorse someone or support someone who's essentially trying to hinder his agenda? Why? And this is the reason why I think President Trump should not endorse anyone that's associated with Senator John Thune. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think President Trump should give his endorsement to John Cornyn, or should he endorse Ken Paxton? Also, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.